All right, we're just on the hour, so Mohammed, feel free to start when you're ready. I just quickly would like to introduce you. So I had the first chat that I had with you sort of earlier today, just sort of getting to know a little bit about your background. You're probably one of the few speakers that are coming from a different continent, all the way from Canada, presenting. And based on sort of our conversation, your background is more on the SharePoint side of things, but it looks like the Power Automate capability or the RPA capability is just too irresistible for people not to sort of fiddle with and play with. So over to you. Looking forward to your session.
Thanks, Rami. So you can hear me well, right?
Yep, all good.
All right, perfect. So let me share my screen and we can get started. All right, so welcome everyone to New Zealand Business Applications Summit. My name is Mohammed Rahali, and in today's session, we're going to be exploring Power Automate Desktop. So let's get started. I'm going to start by a quote from Bill Gates, which says, "The first rule of any technology used in a business is that automation applied to an efficient operation will magnify the efficiency. The second is that automation applied to an inefficient operation will magnify inefficiency." And also, like, there is a quote for Mark Cuban that says, "Automation is going to cause unemployment, and we need to prepare for it." But what does that mean? Like these quotes, what do they tell you? They tell you that automation is going to be there whether we like it or not, right? And the more like we advance, the more like we're going to see bots and robots out there that are going to do the human work. And if you're not going to catch up with these technologies and with these like with this trend, you're going to be like you're not going to be doing a good job later on, right? So maybe like better to know these technologies right now rather than just being the late one to the party, right? And this is what we're gonna explore, which is the RPA, Power Automate Desktop, which is Microsoft's way of doing robotic process automation. So, but first of all, a little bit about me. My name is Mohammed Dirhali. I'm based in Montreal, Canada. However, I have the New Zealand background. So I work at Cyclotron as a solution architect. And if you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter, I'm going to be available. I'd love to chat with you and um, get to know new people in the community. I'm a Microsoft MVP in the Office apps and services area. But as Rami mentioned, like Power Automate stuff are too good not to explore. And if you want to do anything related to automation in Microsoft 365, then like definitely you're going to need Power Automate. I'm also a Microsoft certified trainer, and I'm also interested in Scrum stuff. So I'm a Scrum professional Scrum product owner as well as Scrum master. Right. So enough about me. Let's get into RPA. So the definition of RPA is that it's a technology that mimics the way humans interact with software to perform high volume and repeatable tasks. So what I'd like to focus on in our case is this line, the high volume and repeatable tasks. So what do we mean here? Let's say that you're working in a company and you're dealing with too many Excel files. You open, like, let's say that you have an Excel file with 1,000 records and you want to go through these records, submit them to another system. And then you want to go to that system and do something else. And then you want to open a website and do something on that website. And then you want to create some folders on your computer and do some stuff. So this is like high volume. So you're doing too many things just to complete one process, right? And it might take you, like, just doing one task, it might take you 30 minutes or something like that. And imagine if you're going to combine it with repeatable tasks, the things that you need to do. So let's say that you need to do that process, which is the 30 minutes, you need to do it 20 times a day. So how many employees would you need to have in order to complete these tasks? So this is where RPA is useful for. It's gonna take some of that, or like so much of that effort, and it's like having this assistant that's gonna help you do these high volume repeatable tasks. So let's discuss something which is DPA versus RPA. So we have desktop process automation and we have robotic process automation. Basically, when you hear these terms, consider them to be the same thing. However, the only difference is that which one has human interaction with it. So when you're seeing as desktop process automation, which is when you're looking at your desktop, you're seeing something that's being done right there, and you can actually like interact with it. That's what we mean by the desktop process automation. And the other type, which we're going to discuss later in this session, which is when the bot itself is doing something, but you're not actually interfering. It's doing that behind the scenes for you. So we're going to explore that later in this session. Other thing that we'll need to discuss is Microsoft is not the only player. Actually, like Microsoft came late into that stage. And there are like other players in the market like Blue Prism and UiPath, which are very well-known RPA solutions out there. So, but we're going to be focusing on Power Automate Desktop. So let's focus on some of the history behind Power Automate Desktop and how it came into reality. So Power Automate Desktop was created by a company called Softomotive, and it was acquired by Microsoft in May 2020. And the goal was that Microsoft, they have the chatbots with the Power Virtual Agent, they have the workflows with Power Automate, the cloud flows, and they have Power BI, they have Power Apps, but they don't have anything to automate desktop tasks. So what Microsoft did was acquiring Power Automate Desktop, and in September 2020, it was announced as in preview at Microsoft Ignite. In December 2020, it was released to as GA, and in March 2021, it was released for free to Windows 10 users. And it's also available by default in Windows 11 as well, right? So enough for the history of Power Automate Desktop, and let's get into licenses. So now let's say that you're convinced you need to have this process that you need to get automated, but you need to pay for it. And in fact, you don't have to. So it's going to be free. If you have Windows 10 and Windows 11, then Power Automate Desktop is going to be coming for free in these operating systems. And sometimes you will need to pay. And when you need to pay is when you want to combine it with, like, we talked about the competitors. So in the case of UiPath, it's having an orchestrator online that's actually running the desktop workflows in different machines. In our case, it's Power Automate Cloud. So if you want to if you want to have communication between Power Automate Desktop and Power Automate Cloud, that's when you need to have a license, right? So it's for free if everything that you're doing is just on your computer. So you're opening Excel files, you're moving files across your computer, you're running PowerShell, you're running commands in the command line, stuff like that. That's all for free. You can just do that. Once you want to get out of your computer, once you want to communicate with the outside world, that's when you need to pay for it. And the payment model is you would need to pay $40 a month for each user. But Microsoft, they have this offer, which is you pay only $15 per user a month if you're ready to purchase 5K licenses. And that's for a limited period as well. So you have the option right there. And this is, as you see right here, it says attended. And the attended one is when the bot is running and you have the machine open. So you need to be logged into the machine in order for the bot to run. If you want to run bots in the backend, so without being attached to a user, you can do that. And in that case, you will need to have the unattended RPA add-on, and that's for 150 for each bot a month. So it's not, as you see, like it's not attached to a specific user, because this one is the attended one. It's not attached to a user. It's unattended, and it's for each bot itself, right? So we know about the licensing right now. So just one more note, so we are all on the same page, the attended and unattended. That means, do we have human interaction or not, right? So the attended one is when you have a user that's going to be logged in to the machine, and then the bot is going to be running. The unattended one is when you're not actually logged into the machine. So you have like a VM somewhere living in Azure, and then the bot is going to run to that VM without having you to log into that VM. So that's the unattended, and these are like the two like running, let's say, running types of Power Automate Desktop. Next, how do we get started with it? Let's say that you don't actually have it installed already. Let's say that you have Windows 10, you don't have it installed already on your machine. What do you do? So you can download it directly from the download center, or you can download it from flow.microsoft.com or powerautomate.microsoft.com. So you can actually do that. Once you download it and you run the exe, what you're going to have is you're going to just go through the wizard. It's really simple. And as you see right here, there's something to note. You have this checkbox, install Microsoft Edge, WebDriver, or Chrome. And these are needed if you're going to do something called web automation. And web automation, remember the example I mentioned earlier when I mentioned you might want to open Excel file, do some operations there. Then you might want to open a website. In that website, you might want to fill a form automatically. So you can actually record your steps in the browser, and then the bot is going to learn what you did, and it's going to do that for you later on in upcoming stages. So in order to do this web recording thing, you'll need to have the WebDriver installed either for Microsoft Edge or for Chrome. And there is also one for Firefox, but you can download it directly on Microsoft's website. So once you install these, you're going to be ready to go. Now, one thing to note is if you want to let Power Automate Online, so Power Automate Cloud, if you want to let it access Power Automate Desktop, then you would need to have a gateway installed on your computer. However, because by default, your machine is not open to the cloud, not like no one would just access your machine easily and just send stuff to your machine. So you want to have this kind of a tunnel between your computer and Power Automate Online, so Power Automate can just access your computer and run Power Automate Desktop. In order to do that, you need to install that tunnel, which is the data gateway. However, if you're having your machine, let's say that in Azure, you don't actually have to do that. It's going to be done for you by default without having you to install gateway, and I'm just going to show you that in a minute. So after that, you would just like launch Power Automate Desktop, and this is how you're going to be installing the extension for Chrome for Power Automate in order for you to be able to do recording stuff, and then you're going to be able to sign in, right? Now let's discuss the types of automation, and I mentioned this, which is the web automation. If you have a process that requires you to open a browser, in that browser go to that website, in that website fill this form, then go to another page, fill another form, then fetch some data. So you want to deal with the browser itself. You're going to be able to do that with web automation, and you're going to be able to do the same thing with desktop automation. So if you have a desktop application that you want to automate, you're going to also be able to do that. So maybe open a Windows application, do some stuff in there, open another one, and so on and so on. So you're going to be able to record your steps while you're interacting with the desktop application. So I actually don't like slides. I like more to dig into demos and explain stuff. So that was my last slide. So I'll just get into demos right away. So let's just let's switch to my environment, and there we go. And let me just go to Power Automate. So here I have Power Automate Desktop, and what you see right here is the main page, and this is called the console, right? And this is where we're going to be able to create a new flow. So I can just create a new flow. They're named flows, just like with the Power Automate Cloud. And here I have a bunch of them. So if I click on this one, I'm going to be able to run it, or I can edit, I can rename it, and so on and so on. But I have all of these like open. So maybe like if I try it on this one, I don't have it open, so I can edit or rename or just delete it altogether, right? I can run the flows right here as well. So I'll show you right now, like from the console, let's say that I created the bot, and I'm just gonna take one of them. So I'll take the time of this one. So this is what we see. On the left-hand side, we have a list of all the actions. So, and they are grouped into categories. So all the actions that are related to variables, I'm gonna see them under the variables section, conditionals, and so on and so on. So if I want to have something related to Excel, I would be able to find it under Excel. Or what I can do is maybe launch, and I would find all the actions that are related to launch. And I can see the filter is also grouped by the types. So here I have launch Excel. If I want to add this one to my canvas, which is what I have right here, which is the authoring area that I'm creating the workflow. If you've worked with SharePoint Designer, I'm not sure if you're familiar with SharePoint Designer, but it's similar to SharePoint Designer, where you have like actions, each one on top of the other. I can just drag this one and drop it. You see, like there is a black line appearing somewhere, so I can just have it there, and it will display a dialog that's going to allow me to configure my action. So launch Excel with a blank document, or I can select a document from my computer that I want to have open, right? If I just close this one, it will remove the action for me. So it's not going to be saved right there. I have here variables on the right-hand side. Anything that that I define. So for example, if you see this action right here, when I define it, so attached to running Excel, so you have this launch and you have attach. The launch is going to launch a new Excel file for you, right? So it's going to launch a new one. The attach is assuming that you have an Excel file already open, and it's just going to attach the process to it. So here I'm just saying I have an Excel file open that's named time off, and just go and grab it. But how am I going to deal with this file in my flow? So if we double click on this one, I can see that attach it to time off Excel file, and I have it here open. And it's going to grab this file that I have, and it will just reference it to me in my flow as Excel instance, right? So again, I have this action attached to running Excel. I provide the name of the Excel file that I want it to be attached to, which is this one. And then I can reference this file in my flow using this variable, Excel instance. So this action actually generated a variable for me. And you're going to see the list of variables that are generated right there. So here I have the variables, and here is Excel instance. For example, let's see this one, get first free column row from Excel worksheet. If I double click on this one, it will get the first free column and the first free row. It will get them for me, and it will store the values in these variables. So I have first free column, first free row, and I can see them right there. So these are like variables that are auto-generated, and I can see them right here on the right-hand side. However, we can also define variables right here at this section, and you can see this plus button, which tells you that you can actually create new variables. And I have variable types. So this is what I mentioned when you want to communicate with the outside world. And the outside world in our case is Power Automate Online, right? So if I want to pass anything from Power Automate Online to my Power Automate desktop, then I will need to have input variables. If I want to pass anything back from Power Automate desktop to Power Automate Online, then I will need to have output variables. So let's see what we can do. If I define an input variable, I can, by default, it's going to be here input. You're not going to be changing that. And I have here the variable name, and I have the external name. So this is the variable name, how I'm going to deal with it internally within my desktop flow. So it's similar to these ones. And the external name is whatever is going to appear in Power Automate Cloud, right? And here I have the type of the variable, what I want it to be, and any default value, and so on, right? So if I look at this one, right click and edit, I can see that this one is an output variable. So it will pass the result from Power Automate Desktop back to Power Automate Online. And here I have the variable name and the external name to be the same. If I click on this one, edit, this is an input variable. So it will pass whatever value from Power Automate Cloud, it will pass it into Power Automate Desktop. And as you can see, the internal name, I have it without spaces. External name is going to be with spaces. But that's just like for the experience in the Power Automate Desktop. I just show it without spaces, but here I rather have my variables without spaces. And you can see for this one, it's going to be the same, and so on and so on. So what does this do? It's going to open the Excel file. It will get the first free row and free column. So if I open this one, the first free row is going to be number 2, and the first free column is going to be this one, right? So this is what we have right now. After that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the value that's coming as the first name. And you see, when I want to deal with my variables in my flow, I just have them between percentage symbol. So this is how you deal with the variables. You can either click on the X and choose the variable, or I can just like type it first name, right? So I can just type it as text. So what I'm doing right here is I'm saying I want to write the first name, and I want to write it exactly in the location A and the row, the first free row. Basically, what I'm doing is go to the column A, go here, and write it in the first free row. Write it right here. So this is the first name that's coming from Power Automate Online. Next, I'm doing the same thing for the last name. So I'm just write it in B this time, and in the first free row. So I'm writing the first name. I'm writing that here. The last name, sorry. Then I'm also doing the time off. I'm also doing that there. And then I'm displaying a message. So here, like you see, I have action. So message. And you're going to see all the actions that contain the word message. And I can see there is a display message. So if I double click on this one, what I'm doing here is the title for that message, for that Windows message, is approval required. And then the message itself is composed of variables. So here I see first name, last name. So for example, Mohammed Dirhali has requested time off. And the time off is also coming from the variable coming from Power Automate Online. Approve this leave. And I give options to the user, yes and no. So these are going to be the 2 buttons that are going to be available to the user. Whatever the user clicks here is going to be stored in this button pressed. So if the user clicks on yes, it's going to be stored in this one. If the user clicks on no, it's going to be stored in that one. Whatever variable that's, and you can see it right here, whatever variable that's added here, I'm just storing that in the approval, right? And the approval, if you remember, it's the out variable, right? So once the workflow is finished, what's going to happen is this one is going to return the value to Power Automate Online. And I can use it there to send an email or do whatever I want with it, right? So I'm just assigning this one to the approval, and then I'm writing the result for the approval in the column D. So I'm writing the result right there. So let's see how it goes. Let's see, because I need these variables. So I'm going to run the workflow from Power Automate Online. Let's go to Power Automate Online. And it's this one, request time off. So I'm just going to edit this. But before that, I wanted to show you something. So if we go to monitor, I can actually, under monitor, I can see all the desktop flow runs. So I can see them. I can see them right here. If you're doing some test or some stuff, you're going to see if they failed or anything. So I can see my workflows running right there. I can see the machines right now that are actually acting as host for Power Automate Desktop. So if I'm signed into another machine, this is the name of my machine. If I'm signed into another machine, I'm going to see the name of the machine right there available for me. So let's get back to my flow. And this flow is going to run manually. And here I have the first name, last name, and number of days. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the desktop flow that's called time off, which is this one, remember? This one, that's called time off. And we can see it right here in the console, this one, the one that I'm interested in. And right here, I'm going to see the names of my flows that are available in on that machine. Now it's going to be as attended, and I'm going to pass these variables. And you see, they have spaces because this is the external name that I had. So for example, this one, first name, but the external variable is that one, right? And then I'm going to run it. At the end, here I'm just saying that there is a variable available for me, and I'm going to log the message right here. I can just use it with whatever I want, but that's going to be coming from the output variable that's defined right here. So let's actually run it, test it. So I'm going to run it manually. I'm just going to say Mohammed, Dirhali, and 15 days. Run. And let's wait. Note at the bottom, there's going to appear, a window is going to appear right now. Let's just wait for it. Now the Power Automate Online is communicating with Power Automate Desktop, and now I have this flashing window. So if I click on this one, and here is my dialog that I was just talking about. And this is the message that's composed of these variables, first name, last name, and the number of days. Approve or leave. If I click any of these, it's going to be stored in that approval variable. It's going to be added to that Excel file, and it's going to be logged here in the compose. So if I hit yes, I go and open this one. Here I have my row added right here. And if I go here, you're going to see that Power Automate Online is still waiting for Power Automate Desktop to get back to it. So let's just wait a second. And it ran successfully. And if I open the compose, I can see that the output is yes. And that's how I was able to do the communication between Power Automate Online and Power Automate Desktop using the run a flow built with Power Automate. And this is an action that's available for you. So if you add an action right here under desktop flows, you have the action available for you right there. All right. So let's have another example. Let's have another, I'll go with the final one here. So I'm going to go with this grid. As you can see, like when I was just playing with Power Automate Desktop, I have actions. And if you want to disable an action or enable it, you can right click on an action and you can disable the action, right? You can double click on the action or you can just right click edit. And this time I'm not attaching to an Excel file. This time I'm launching an Excel file. So if I double click on that one, I'm launching an Excel file and I'm just opening this grades. So let me just see this grades file. There it is. So I have this grades file. I have here students, and I have their first semester and second semester, and I want to calculate the average and store it right there, right? So let's have a look at this flow, what it does. And when I run the Excel file, I just have this option to make it visible so I can see it. And I'm reading the values from Excel, from this Excel file. So I'm just grabbing everything from the Excel file and store it in this variable, Excel data, right? Which is available right there. Now what I'm doing is get first free column and first free row from that Excel file. And what I'm going to do right here is get first free row on column from Excel. So basically, like what I'm doing here is, let me just see. Wait a second. Get first free row on column from Excel. So I want to get this one, right? So basically, like I'm going to deal with this with these columns as number. So basically, like this is number 1, number 2, number 3, 4, and 5. So I'm having here number 5. So I want to have first free row of this column, so it's going to give me that one. So I'm going to get that one, store it in this variable, first free row on column, right? I'm going to store this one in this variable, in the counter. So I just got this one, which is going to be 1 in our case, and I'm going to store it in this counter. Now I store it in this counter, you're going to see, like, if I have variable, I have increase variable, decrease variable, set variable, and so on and so on and so on, right? So what I'm doing right now is, I'm just taking the value from the current item. So here I have a loop. So I have a for each loop that I'm having right here. You can just drag this one, and you can see that it's acting like a container. So it has a start and an end. Anything that's in between will be executed across everything that I'm looping through. So what I'm looping through is I'm looping through the Excel data that I got from my Excel file. So I'm going to loop through all of these, and each instance is going to be this current item, right? So I just drag drop this for each. So for example, I can just drag drop it here. And I can just say, okay, I want to iterate through my my Excel data. So I can just iterate through this one, right? And save. So if I scroll down right now, I can see that I have this one, and then I can start adding actions in between, right? So I don't actually need this one, so I'm just going to highlight both of them and delete. All right. Control Z. Okay. So what I'm having here is I'm looping through the Excel file, and I have each row, I have it as a current item. However, I want to access, in my case, I want to access the first number. So what I'm doing right here is this action, this particular action, like when I want to access the current item, it's 0 based. So this is 0, 1, 2. So for the first item, for this one, I want to access current item 2 in order to access the first semester grade. So basically what I'm doing is current item, and everything, you might be like tempted to do something like this, to say, okay, current item, and then I'm going to access it like that. But that's not how it's done. You need to include everything between the percentage symbol right there. So I'm just getting the first, and I'm storing that in first number variable. And I'm going to do the same with that one. So I'm going to store the second semester, and I'm storing that in second number. Then what I'm doing right here is I'm setting a sum variable to the result of the sum of these two numbers. So now I have the sum. Then I'm storing, I'm having the average variable. I'm storing the value right here. And then what I'm doing is I'm writing the value of the average, and I'm writing that to the E column. So here, this one, but in our case, to the counter. So remember the counter that we had, which is the first free column right here. So I'm just using that. Basically, I'm getting the average, and I'm storing the average in there. Okay, so let me just try this. Did I lose Zoom? Just a second. I think I lost. Okay. All right. So this is what I'm doing. I'm getting the average, and then I'm storing the average there. Then I'm increasing the counter by 1. I have like other variable actions to increase and decrease, but I just did it that way. And then the variable is going to be increased. Next time, I'm going to have the variable the counter as 1, and then I'm just going to go to the second row, and then getting the second number, doing the sum, and then calculating the average, and then storing the average in there, and so on and so on, right? So let's try to run it and see what's going to happen. It will go through each one. And that's pretty much it. If we go and open the file, I'm going to see that all my values um, uh, uh, yeah, this is just an example. So many things like you can do with Power Automate online, but you can also do the same with Power Automate desktop. So for example, like you can like sending emails, you can also do it through this one. But it's just like an example how you can do stuff. You have also like use cases why you want to do why you want to do some stuff in Power Automate desktop rather than keep sending data back and forth between Power Automate desktop and the cloud. So if you have already the file in here, you can just use it. Or if you're creating files on the fly on your machine and you want to process that, you don't actually need to send them back to Power Automate online in order to do it. If you're doing like all of the work on your desktop, creating files, sending values back and forth between Excel files and so on, you don't have actually to do it with Power Automate online. So that was for the second example. Let's see another example. So I'll go to this one, to the finance application, and let's see what we can do with desktop automation. So in my case, I'm opening how to connect cloud flows to desktop flows is better suited for new machine way. So you will need to have this data gateway. However, if you have, for example, like this machine that I'm working with, it's an Azure VM. If you're having an Azure VM, you don't need to install Gateway. So I don't have Gateway installed on this one. It's just going to be picked up by Power Automate right away. So you don't have to actually do any configuration. And they're going to help you if you're going to also be using unattended. So you can just create your machines there. You can have a machine group. So you can use something like, I would say, as load balancing. You can have like multiple Azure VMs in there, and if one of them is responding to a desktop flow, and there is another request, another one can just go ahead and process the request. So you can also utilize that. All right. So launch Excel. So here I have this finance file. Let me just go and look it up. So here in the finance file, I have accounts, contacts, and emails. Uh, and I want to see how I can automate this process. So let's run it first and see what's going on. I'm going to hit run. Yep, you can do that, Monica. So as you can see right now, basically, like I'll tell you when you'd need to have Power Automate Desktop. You would need Power Automate Desktop when the application that you're dealing with doesn't have like APIs. So for example, like this application that I'm dealing with right now, it's a desktop application, but I'll show you like I'll show you an example, but it's not the perfect example. But let's say that you have a website or like you have a desktop application or anything. It doesn't have APIs that would let you deal with it remotely, like either through PowerShell or through Power Automate online. So in that case, your best bet is to open the application and do the process manually there. But you don't want to keep doing the process manually, as the process doesn't have the APIs, but you can also automate it with Power Automate Desktop. This is when it becomes powerful, right? So here I was just able to open this application, click on accounts, click new, add a new record, then save, then click new, add a new record, save, and so on, reading from that Excel file. So if I go and open the application right here, the desktop flow, I have the launch Excel file. Then I have the read data from that Excel file, and then run the application. So the run the application, I have an action for running the application, and there it is. And what I'm doing right here is I'm just pointing to that exe file. And you see this tip right there. I didn't actually do this on my own. So I didn't actually like drag drop actions right here. What I did was clicking on this desktop recorder. So what this desktop recorder is going to do, let me show you. So if I click on this one, it opened this tool for me. So I'm just going to drag it to the right-hand side. and I'm going to click on record right here. If I click on record, now anything that I'm going to do is going to be recorded as steps on the right-hand side. So for example, if I click on accounts, now I have an action added right there. If I click on new, another action is added there. If I click just clicking, another action. So if I type anything, another action is going to be added. Click here, another action, and so on and so on. Then click here, another action, and then I will hit this save. Once I'm done, so this is what I want to do for each item, and that's it. Once I'm done, I'm going to hit on finish. If I go back to my finance application, let's see. Was it this one? No, it was the finance one. And it added all these steps for me. So you see, it added, where did we add it? Yeah, it added this. See? So what I could have done is I could have clicked somewhere else and do that on my own, right? So I'll just click, do like that, and to delete these ones because I'm not gonna need them. But for example, like I could have, let's say that you want to add an action somewhere. You click on that action, and then if I double click on this one, it will add it on top of below that action. Would you prefer recorder or writing code yourself if you know the steps? Uh, I would do the recorder, but sometimes, okay, here's the thing. So you have, I don't think like I'm going to be able to dig into that here, but you see like on the right-hand side, I'll just show it to you real quickly. You have these UI elements, and these like act some kind like CSS, where you have selectors. So sometimes when you do the web recorder, things get messed up, and you need to actually like go into each one and actually modify the selectors. So you see like these selectors right here. You need to actually go in and start, okay, you know what? I need it to be this one as well. I need it to be that, and play with these selectors. So sometimes it's not gonna be able to pick up what you actually want, and you need to dig into this one. For me, like it's gonna be the same. If it's a long process, I will just let the recorder do it, and then I'm gonna go in and refine it where possible. But if it's just like a couple of things that I'll need to do, I don't think I'm just gonna do the recorder. I'll just drag drop the actions. So it depends, but yeah. Okay, so what I'm doing right here, like for example, here I let the recorder do it, and then I just go into this one and say, rather than the text, filling the text, the dummy text, I delete the dummy text, and here I'm saying whatever is in the current item and account. So the current item, which is going to be this one in the account column. And then I go to this one because I'm reading here the Excel file. So I'm reading all of these values. And inside the for each that I have access to the current item. So I have to the current item, but which column in the current item do I want? Which column? So right now I'm on this one. Which column do I need? The account? Do I need the contact? I need the contact. So I say, get me the contact, and that one is going to be stored in that text box in my form. And then doing the same thing for this one, and finally it's clicking on the image, right? So this is what I'm going to be having right here. That's basically it. Let me see. Do we have time? We don't have time. I have like two examples, but I don't think there is enough time. I'll try to show it to you really quickly. So I wouldn't say try this because that might not be the an optimal solution to automate SharePoint. But let's say that I have this issues list, right? Where is it? Issues. Okay. I was just bored, so I thought maybe we can automate SharePoint. So here I have a list of issues, description, the priority, status, assigned to, logged by, etc., etc. So, and I have this list in SharePoint. Where is my list? I have this SharePoint list. Can I loop through that Excel file, get all the data, and then start automating SharePoint. So how I did it, let's actually run it, and let's then talk about it. So I'm just going to the issue tracker, and I'm going to run it, and let's see how it's gonna work. So it will launch the Excel file, get the values from Excel, launch the browser, go to that list. It's going to go, hopefully it works. Click on new, add the first issue, and you're just sitting there watching it, filling some values from Excel and doing its thing, right? And it's gonna go through the next one, do some stuff, and so on and so on. Now, how did I do this, right? Let me just go back here, interrupt it. And to interrupt it, you can just hit Shift F5. That's going, it's like Visual Studio. That's going to stop the execution. But how did I do it? I did it like in a sneaky way, I would say, which is I used like this all was manually. So I used the actions of moving the mouse. So after launching the web browser to this location, I moved the mouse. So you have this action, move the mouse. And you see when I'm moving the mouse, these numbers are going to change. So you see when I'm moving the mouse, when I want to grab that exact location, I can just hit Control Shift. So it's going to pick up that location. So how I did that is I just went here. So I double click on this one and then switch to the browser and hit Control Shift. It will register the location for that new button. And then I'm sending a left click. But here I have this action, which is actually a comment. So I know what I'm doing. So here I have move the mouse to the new button. That's my comment. And I know that the actions after that are going to be for the new button. Then I'm waiting for 1 second because I know that the panel in SharePoint is going to take some time to load. Then I'm moving the mouse to the name field. So which is basically I clicked on this one. I'm moving the mouse to this location, and then I'm clicking on Control Shift while opening this one. So it's somewhere like it's going to be somewhere here. Then I'm sending the left click. Then I'm sending keys, which is the name that I got from Excel, right? Then I'm just doing the same thing for the description. Moving the mouse, sending left click, sending keys. Moving the mouse, sending left click and keys, and so on and so on. And that's how I was able to automate it in a SharePoint list, and just fill it up with Power Automate. Didn't matter for me. Like I tried it on 2 screens, but that's why I was saying I wouldn't recommend it, because I don't know what would happen if you try it on. I haven't tested it that much, but not sure if it's gonna work on totally like different resolutions. So I still need to test that, but yeah. Another thing that I used Power Automate Desktop for, which is also something that I don't know if there is a use case for that, but that was just for fun, which is, let's say that from, let me go here. Let's say that you have maybe like from Power Apps, you have an application that you want to say, okay, I want to create a SharePoint site. And I want to create a SharePoint site that has this theme, the of type communication site. I want to have the name to be that name and some configuration, right? And I'm not sure if you know about PnP provisioning engine, but you can actually develop a SharePoint website the way you want and have PnP provisioning engine. It's like a lookbook, SharePoint lookbook, provision the site for you. So you can do it through Power Apps, you can do it through Power Automate Online, just okay, some configuration and do that. So I thought, okay, maybe I can just have a PowerShell done with PnP to provision a website for me. And it can accept parameters and then do some stuff for me. Maybe if it's a department website, create it for me. If it's something else, create that for me. So what I have here is, let me show you. Let's go back to flows. And I have provision sites. So I have a manual flow that's going to accept site URL and site title. And then I'm just running this one and passing the site URL and site title, right? And what I'm having right there is, now here's the thing. the new PNP PowerShell is going to run with PowerShell 7, PowerShell core. So if I'm going to use PowerShell, the normal PowerShell action right here, it's going to run it for me PowerShell 5. It's not going to run core. So I need to have a way, also like a sneaky way, I need to have a way to run PowerShell 7 with Power Automate Desktop. So I know that I can't use this action, but I can use CMD. And in order to do that is I opened the CMD session, command line session, and I got the variables that I got from Power Automate Online. So I have my tenant right here, and I just append the site URL that I got online, and I stored this one here. That was not super necessary, but I just stored it here. And then here, I run this command, which is pwsh. And when you run this one, it's going to run PowerShell core for you. If you run PowerShell, like if you write PowerShell, that's going to run PowerShell 5. But if you just do pwsh, that's going to run PowerShell 7 for you. And then I execute this script, and then I pass the parameter. The title is going to be that one, and the URL is going to be this one, right? And that script, actually my provisioning script for PNP. And that script is going to actually, like, you have endless possibilities there. You can just do whatever you want. You can just pass the theme name. You can pass like whatever you want. If you have site templates, you can say, I need site template type 1. I need type 2, type 3. And in the backend, you have types of sites. Each one has its own document libraries, content types, site columns, whatever you want, right? So let's see if I run, where were we? So if I just do this manually, save, I've been doing this for, I don't know, I need to come up with a name. So let's say New Zealand Business Application Summit 22. I don't think I had a name, but just to be sure, MM, just something like that. That should be unique enough. And if I run this one, I didn't do like any error handling or anything like that. But if you want to do any error handling, this is where you need to have PowerShell. If you have any error in code, then execute Power Automate Online, and Power Automate is going to handle the error for you. So right now, I should be receiving a message from Power Automate Desktop telling me that the site has been created. So here I have it. And if I take this one, let's go to, let me just duplicate this one, and we use the URL. Hopefully that got created successfully. And there we go. So I created a communication site through PowerShell by just sending a request from Power Automate Online. But that can be just any custom PNP template to have customized SharePoint sites. Right. So I think I went through the last slides really quickly, but that was it. I hope you learned something new in this session, and thank you for attending.
Awesome session, Mohammed. Before we close, do we have any sort of questions in the audience? I know Monica has been quite chatty. Feel free to go off mute if you have any more questions. But otherwise, I've got a question as well.
No, I mean, just thank you for the session. Yeah, learned a few sneaky ways to do things. That's a great session. Yeah.
Thanks.
Awesome. So my question is, do you have any sort of lesson learned or sort of war stories about things that don't always work with RPA, where you would get a hit and miss result?
I had issues processing Excel files, like large set of Excel, like I remember like I had around 20K, something like that, like multiple Excel files. Like when it takes some time, sometimes I feel like it gets stuck. So I'm not sure if this is something Microsoft is working on or anything of that nature, but I got it like for small things, like maybe hundreds of records, that's fine. But when it gets into tens of thousands, that's when I noticed that it might have issues.
So some performance issues, okay.
Yeah, and honestly, like I used UiPath, but to use Power Automate Desktop is way easier, and the learning curve is like much better with Power Automate Desktop. So in UiPath, like the terms, the terminology, the idea of UiPath, it was really foreign to me, and Power Automate Desktop was just like really smooth. So that was one thing. UiPath, they have like their own orchestrator, stuff like that, but you have Power Automate Cloud itself as your orchestrators. You don't have to learn anything new in order to do that. So yeah.
Okay. That's really good. So my background is more, I don't know if you've used Easy Repro before, especially for model driven. So it's more around sort of the coding side of things. The recording is not that good. And, you know, as it was mentioned in the chat, like sometimes changing screen resolution, changing sort of position on the screen would basically get your automation to fail. Whereas it looks like, you know, those things are built from the ground up to be a bit more robust. So that's really good. Hey, Mohammed, thank you.
To test the resolution thing. Still have to yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, thank you very much for presenting. I know it's getting towards the end of the day on Friday, right? In Canada.
Yep. Exactly.
So as in here, it's still around 3 o'clock. But thank you very much for participating. Great session, and sort of would love to have you again in another conference or another session.
It's my pleasure. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much.